Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the March 16th, 2021 meeting of the City Council for the City of Canton Falls to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Bringold.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
Gesby.
Here.
Cronenberger.
Here.
Lundell.
Here.
Montgomery. Here. Altoff.
Here. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Duncan, a second by Bringold to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we've got a couple public hearings tonight. The first one, Resolution 2540, bear with me, approving to the modification to the development program for Municipal Development District Number 2 and establishing a tax increment financing district Number 2-9 within the Municipal Development District Number 2 and approving the tax increment financing plan, therefore authorizing an interfund loan and authorizing execution of the development agreement. Neil, you want to introduce Rebecca?
Yeah, we have Rebecca Kurtz from Ellers here tonight. She'll give you a brief introduction to the TIF that we're proposing and answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening, Rebecca Kurtz with Ellers.
Is it on?
Might be on the.
Is it down the bottom there? No.
Oh, thank you. So I'll try that again. Good evening, Rebecca Kurtz with Ellers. And as introduced, what is before you this evening is to consider a modification to a development program or project area. And then the big item is the establishment of tax increment financing 2-9. What I want to do this evening is just give a quick overview of where we've been and then what TIF is. Then we'll talk some specifics about this particular district and the next steps for the council if you choose to move forward. We did present this to the EDA at their last meeting, and for those of you who were at the EDA meeting or watched it at a later time, I will say there have been a couple changes that you will see, and I'll talk about those updates and explain the differences. But the Canton Falls EDA and the City of Canton Falls have discussed creation of a new tax increment financing district, so we'll talk about what that means and then where we're going. So starting with what is tax increment financing. From the basic definition, it is the ability to capture and use most of an increase in property tax revenue from new development for public purposes. I do want to note that with tax increment financing districts, the school operating referendum portion of your tax levy or of the tax levy is not able to be captured. So if the schools had a bond referendum that is based, or the operating referendum, that will not be impacted at all. If there is another operating referendum during the term of the TIF district, that also will not be captured through the tax increment. TIF, for many of you, you may know this, is authorized and all of the requirements are outlined in an extensive set of Minnesota statutes, Chapter 469. I've referenced it if you have desired to do some light reading ever. And the reason why we even use TIF in communities is to encourage development or redevelopment that would not necessarily occur without some type of public subsidy or some type of assistance. The way TIF works, as I mentioned, it is capturing the increase in property taxes from development. And so just to show that graphically for people, In the blue on the chart, we are representing taxes as they are today. So in this case, for TIF 2-9, it is the taxes that would be generated from the bare land of 2 parcels. The tax increment is represented by that red on the chart, showing that when development occurs, when the 2 buildings are constructed, there will be an increase of taxes, and that increase is the tax increment that we are talking about this evening. At the time when the Tif District is decertified or all obligations are paid in full, you can see as represented by the green that the city, county, and school district receive the benefit of all of the taxes from that new development. So I want to just emphasize the point that with tax increment, it is not giving up existing taxes that you're receiving today. It is just seeing a delay in the benefit from the new taxes from the development. So the process for establishing a TIF district includes public hearings by the council and adoption of a Tif Plan. The Tif Plan that has been put together talks about the policy objectives. It sets forth a budget of the anticipated revenues and expenses, and then also discusses potential fiscal impacts, and that is sent to both the county and the school to review. County and school representatives were invited to the public hearing. We do ask for their comment. I have not received any, which is not uncommon. But ultimately, it is the action of the council here this evening that would decide if you do want to move forward with the establishment of the TIF district. The Tif Plan, which is the first item to consider, is really setting forth the terms or setting forth the plan to establish and use TIF as a tool. The terms of the actual TIF are going to be governed by a contract and a development agreement with one of the parties that is included in the TIF district. That I will cover in a minute, and we'll take that as a separate action item. But again, that contract is going to set forth those expectations and the actual contract between you and Volumetrics. So the specifics of TIF District 2-9. It is an economic development district, which by statute has a maximum term of 9 years. There always is the ability to have the term shortened if any obligations associated with the district are paid off in less than 9 years. One of the qualifications for an economic development district is that it needs to include manufacturing, warehouse, and distribution. And the 2 parcels that are going to be developed in this district include the Cannon Bells facility or new facility, along with Volumetrics, which again, both of those meet that manufacturing, warehouse, distribution requirement. With this project, the EDA had provided land to Volumetrics and Cannon Bells, and the goal is to have money, the EDA reimbursed for those land payments or for the land write-down. With that, I will say we have been having discussions with the city's tax increment attorney, and because the land was transferred for Cannon Bells prior to establishing the district, we're going to not be able to capture the value for Cannon Bells. However, that will still be able to be in the district and help pay off the land value for the Volumetrics project. As I mentioned there, you can see the 2 parcels, both located on Cannon Industrial, and Cannon Bells has been transferred, but the Volumetrics site is still owned by the EDA and will be transferred in the near future here. With that, we are estimating that the combined taxable market value for these 2 projects will be roughly $2.3 million when completed. I do want to, with this slide, point out that we are estimating, again, for both properties, total property taxes will be roughly $77,800. However, again, we aren't able to capture 100% of that, so we are estimating the gross tax increment that will be available is going to be closer to $58,000 on an annual basis. You can see that the statewide commercial taxes of about $14,800 cannot be captured through tax increment. Those market value taxes that I referenced that typically are school referendums total about $4,200 and cannot be captured. And then the base value, which because it is raw land, is minimal, but the taxes generated off of that will be about $790. We have set forth a budget in the Tif District of about $700,000. With that, we set forth a maximum, and we had added some inflation. This was set with the hope that we would be able to capture the value for all of the land in the Tif District. With that, it does not obligate you to do anything. It just is a maximum that says the city is not able to capture more than $700,000 in this Tif District. As I mentioned, the EDA has provided the land to, or will be providing the land to volumetrics. We are estimating that the market value price of that is roughly $180,000. We are continuing to work out a couple details with the TIF attorney to see if we are able to include carrying costs or any of that with that. But the note or the amount that the EDA would be reimbursed for land will be roughly $180,000 plus interest over time. So for next steps, as I mentioned, the EDA did review this at their last meeting and did adopt a resolution or recommend that the council move forward and consider approval of the TIF district, which brings us here this evening. You are required to hold a public hearing regarding this. And then after the public hearing, you can consider a resolution that was provided by the city's TIF attorney if you do choose to move forward with establishing the TIF district. If you do approve the TIF district, there also is the form of a development agreement to consider, which is going to outline those terms between the city and volumetrics for ultimately providing the city the ability to use the TIF or capture the TIF to repay themselves for the land. The benefit to volumetrics being that they receive the land for $1. With that, I will pause, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I gave a very high level but very quick overview, so happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Rebecca? Hearing none, thank you. I think we'll open the public hearing on Resolution 2540. Is there anybody in the public who would like to talk about this resolution? Please come forward. Second call. Third and final call. Hearing none, we're going to close the public hearing on Resolution 2540. And I'd like to hear a motion to approve the TIF Agreement 2-9.
So moved.
Motion by Duncan, second by Montgomery, to approve TIF Agreement 2-9. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Second public hearing, Resolution 2542, amending Resolution 2529, relating to the water and sewer access charges. Neil.
Okay, back on February 4th, the Public Works Commission met and reviewed the fees for water and sewer access charges. As you know, we've discussed this at council, and it was suggested that we look at it, and simply because your water and sewer access fees can be as high as $30,010 each for sewer and for water. And as you all know, several times you've had new builders come in and developers come in and request that the fee be reduced. So at the February 4th Public Works Commission, they reviewed it and recommended to the City Council that it be reduced to a flat fee of $5,600 for both sewer and water each. Council discussed it at the last meeting, and after a 10-day notice of publication and the public hearing tonight, if you so see fit, you can reduce that sack and whack fee, sewer access and water access fee to $5,600 each. And that's discussion for tonight in the public hearing.
Is there any comments by the council? Hearing none, let's open the public hearing on Resolution 2542 for amending the water and sewer access charges. Anybody from the public would like to address that resolution? Second call. Third and final call, Resolution 2542. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing on Resolution 2542. And I'd entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2542, amending Resolution 2529, relating to the water and sewer access charges.
I'll make that a motion. I'll second.
Motion by Gesme, second by Lundell, to approve Resolution 2542. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Moving on, we've got some presentations tonight. We're going to mix this up a little bit. First thing we're going to do tonight, we're going to have the police officer badge pinning. So I'm going to come down there. I'm going to have Mike and Joe come forward.
So, Mr. Mayor, we could just like to say a couple of words before we actually do the swearing in. I want to give each of them a sheet of paper to have it in case they follow along. So when we hire new officers, oftentimes they are new officers. And so for a police officer, they've worked hard to get to where they are, and this is the start of their career. And so with that in mind, I just want to say a few things to remind these guys. So the profession of police officers has been under more open hostility in the last few years. Some may say officers need to be more warrior-like mindset because of the dangers police officers face. I do not discount the danger, but I do not believe that it's the proper context for what police officers do. I think our job is more in line with knights of old that watched over villages as guardians, serving others honorably with integrity, knowledge, and courage, protecting those who could not protect themselves. So tonight, as your badge is pinned on, may it fill your heart with compassion and give you strength to always do what is right, always. Never use it to do harm or in anger, but always to protect those that we serve and to defend those in need. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, I think I'll start with you. We'll do these separately. Raise your right hand. I
Joseph Plan, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the United States of Minnesota. I will faithfully and apparently discharge all duties of police officer of Falls Police Department to the best of my ability, so help me God.
shake your hand. That's
Joe, I want to present you with your badge, and I understand your mom Mindy is going to pin it up.
Okay, Mike?
I, Michael Truex, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota. I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties of a police officer of the Canton Falls Police Department to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Thank you. Welcome to the force.
Michael, this is your badge, and Michael's girlfriend is going to, Emily's going to pin that on. I'm going to step away for a moment, Mayor, but I will be back.
Okay, our next up, we're going to have a Steve Dabble from the Historical Society.
Hi, Steve Dablo. You do realize, Mayor, that a couple of councilmen asked me to talk for about 45 minutes? So I was born in a log cabin. No.
I believe it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Couldn't resist that one. So thanks to the generosity of a lot of individuals that are still willing to support our program, we have another $15,000 to put towards the repaying of the White House, and so that's a big deal. It's hard. We're not there yet, but it just keeps coming in, and it amazes me. The other thing that I want to share is that we're moving towards opening the museum sometime in April. That's what we think we can do now with the released restrictions. Given the COVID stuff that's going on, it's been hard not to be open. We know there have been people that wanted to come in, and we've had special appointments and stuff. And we built all this momentum up over the last 5 or 6 and 10 years, and it's sort of disgusting to have to put the brakes on. You can't come in. We'll do some special meetings, but we're really excited for that, and we'll let you guys know when that happens, and I'll probably have more money for you. So I'll come around, Neil, and give it to you. Thank you for your patience on this.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay. We're going to wait a minute. They have taken some pictures, and then we're going to have the police report. We'll just have to hold here for a minute.
Personal record for Steve.
Silence your phone.
Is that Mary Jo?
No. It's not him calling me. His ringtone is not appropriate. Get more stuff I need yet? Just get a U-line. Oh. Ooh.
So I apologize. I thought Steve would talk much longer.
So did we.
All of us.
You got the first set of photos done, and look, I saw Steve walking back this way, and I'm like,
What?
oh, maybe just got to do something. Yeah, no, that wasn't what it was.
Okay, item C is Police Department 2020 Annual Report.
It'll be VGA, Luke. And there we go. All right, so for 2020, we actually used our 2019 picture because we couldn't get together to take another picture. We didn't have the events and people couldn't be together as much. So sadly, we were impacted much like the rest of the world because of the components of COVID. Table of contents. And a little bit about the administration, city council, and our population. So the Canton Falls Police Department is a full-service agency. We provide coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the community of Canton Falls. Because of the volume of calls, the majority of those days we have more than one officer working for most of the time. The officers handle a variety of calls, ranging from burglaries and thefts to civil disputes, medical emergencies, traffic direction, car accidents, barking dogs, sexual assault to suicides. So it runs the gambit. And the police department handles the investigation of the majority of those incidents. And at any given time, the officers are likely working several different cases that they're following up on at different stages of the process. Some of our officers have more specialized training. We try to get all of our officers trained in areas like child abuse so that no matter who's working when that comes in, they know how to handle it. They may not be the right personality for that case. We would go to a different officer maybe to conduct the interview. But the initial contact, they know how to handle it, be empathetic, but also get the details that we need without pressing the victims too hard. The activities of the police department are not limited to just waiting for things to happen. Our officers are often conducting general patrol in between, and that includes business checks, traffic stops, residential checks. So it looks like they're just driving around, but oftentimes they're also doing other things at that same time that aren't always recognized. So the administrative staff handles a number of the phone questions, the data entry, submitting all of the forms and reports that are required to the state and the FBI, processing permits to purchase firearms, which as you see were up significantly this year, and fulfilling records requests and other duties. So during a normal year, we also try to engage with our community. We get involved in lots of different programs and with other partners that we work with, but because of this year, we didn't get to do very many of those. The parade was canceled, fair was canceled, we couldn't hold parades in fact, so we had to come up with some creative ways, and you'll see that as we go through the slide. High school was out, so our monthly talking with an officer had to take a hiatus, and we haven't restarted that yet because there's still been in more of a hybrid type environment. Hopefully that'll be changing and we can get that started again for next school year. And then a message from the chief. And I've already alluded to, it was challenging. We had to make adjustments. At the very beginning, there was a shortage of hand sanitizer and personal protective equipment. And that had a huge impact on us. I worked with the EMS chief, and we were able to secure some alcohol from one of the distilleries in Northfield, and we mixed up our own hand sanitizer to get us by until we could actually get some. The distillery started producing it then, and so then we were able to get some more until we could get the commercially available stuff. So we had to make some adjustments. We did a lot more talking to people on the phone. During the summer, we tried to engage people outside of their homes rather than inside if we could. All designed to minimize the risk to our staff on contracting COVID. And we must have been doing something right because we didn't end up with any COVID cases out of the police department. And then, of course, 2020 saw the death of George Floyd, and then Additionally, numerous other people through the year, and that brought a lot of attention to police departments, and not always good attention. And there were calls for funding police departments, getting the officers to engage the community more. We're very fortunate here. We've been engaging our community for over 13 years. They were doing it before I came, and we've continued to do it while I'm here. I do feel that the police department is really only as strong as that relationship with the community. We can't be everywhere at once, and the police department requires that interaction from citizens. So if you see something, you say something. That's what allows us to intercept in-progress crimes and be even more successful in solving them. And so that's a key part of how we provide our police services. And the officers go about doing that each and every day. And often it just goes unnoticed. But I'm very blessed with the outstanding officers that I have working for us. They make me look good, but they're the ones that are out there day in and day out doing that hard work of interacting with people on calls on probably their worst day of their lives. And they solve a lot of problems for a lot of people. Departmental roster, we had some changes this year. Officer Ekstrom retired, Marcus Fleur resigned, and then Bonnie's German left our department at the end of the year. And in that photo you notice one of our reserves is Joe Bond. I'm very pleased to say that we've been successful in hiring from our reserve program. Joe's just the latest example of that. So in 2020, the police department budget was $1,147,200. Seems like a big number, but as I alluded to, we provide 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week protection. The majority of those days we have more than one officer working. 85% of our budget is personnel. Another, or is it 85 something, I think. It's too far away and I don't have my glasses on. 89. Okay, so 89%. Somebody has glasses. So when you combine the personnel cost with the operations cost, you end up with almost 96% of our budget is just basically in that, providing that basic service. So all of that is personnel. It's the officers that are out there that day in and day out providing the services. We did receive some grants. An ongoing one is from the Office of Justice Programs. It's the body armor that we wear, the Bulletproof Vest Partnership. They pay $1,000 in that grant. Essentially, they provide about half of the funding for a vest. A vest right now costs a little bit more than a grant. And they provide half of the funding, and then we get a match from the state. So at the end of the day, we're able to expend very little in equipping our officers with body armor as a community. We get that money back, which I think is a benefit to our officers and a benefit to the community. We also participated in a Towards Zero Death grant. The funding for that has been decreasing lately. 2020, just because of the dynamics that shifted in March, there really weren't very many TZD things after that. But in that grant period, we had about $800. Our officers worked 12.5 hours, focusing on different areas like traffic enforcement for DUIs, seatbelts, and distracted driving. And we will see, hopefully we can get that back this year as far as being able to do more of those activities. Events make a big part of our summer, whether it's just people getting together in the neighborhood, the fair, parade for 4th of July, Memorial Day, that type of stuff. Well, in 2020, all of that pretty much got scrubbed. And so we worked with different groups to try to find a permitted way to recognize. And what we found was, instead of a parade, we were going to have a cruise. That didn't violate the governor's restrictions, and so we did a couple of those. 4th of July, we had, first we had the high school graduation. And before that, we even did a recognition for teachers and medical persons with a hospital and clinics. Class of 2020 ended up having their graduation in the parking lot at the high school. We assisted them in traffic control, getting people in and getting people out, and then we did the cruise. And so it was just a way for the community to recognize those people who are graduating, because a lot of the family couldn't be there. They were limited in the number of people that could be in the parking lot. 4th of July parade was changed to a heroes cruise, recognizing members of the military, police, fire, and ambulance, and all those who had to keep working on the front lines during the pandemic. National Night Out first was pushed back, and then it was canceled. So all these pictures are from past ones, which is why it ended up being canceled. As you can see, it'd be pretty hard to have that kind of fun and remain socially distant. For some reason, this picture doesn't show through, but our annual Trick or Trot had to make some changes too. And so they worked in just a counterclockwise manner. All the candy was passed from at least 6 feet away. They came up with some pretty creative ways to do it. And everything went really, really well. And the pumpkin heads would make sense if you could see the background, but there's a smaller version of it on this one. And so we missed our coffee, cops, and conversation, a National Night Out, Halloween, Easter, just a whole slew of things that we do. With the Chamber Fun Thursdays, those got postponed. And all those different events give us a little bit of time to have some fun and make some photos that end up in things like our annual report. We just didn't get to do that this year. Then August 8th, 2020, we had another storm here in Canton Falls. This was not a tornado like the previous one, but more of straight line winds. But the impact was pretty significant on a few of our residences and businesses. These are just some examples. Some more trees came down. Certainly wasn't at the same level, but it did have an impact. And then officer training. So all of our officers are required by state licensing to have 48 hours of continuing education every 3 years. They're mandated 16 hours within the areas of crisis intervention, mental health illness, or mental illness crises, conflict management and mediation, and recognizing value, community diversity, and cultural differences, including implicit bias. But one of the things that's pretty consistent in our training program is that we're looking at it as an opportunity to make them better at doing their job. That training is an investment in our community. It teaches them skills that they can bring back and use in their day-to-day activities. So we expect more than just the minimum from our officers. And so we train for more than just the minimum. We don't do just 48 hours for every 3 years. And we accomplish that through a combination of classroom, online, and department in-service trainings. 2020 was challenging. Lots of the trainings were canceled for the first probably 3/4 of the year. They started by September moving them into more of an online portal. And so some of the trainings were able to continue that way. But there's things that are like hands-on, where it's driving schools. Those really didn't start up again until almost the end of October. So we're going to continue to do that training and invest in our staff. Calls for service. So as you can tell, but just by looking at them, the numbers really don't have a reference for you. So I'll give you some that were down. In 2020, we had fewer assist other agencies by 121. Business checks were down by 8. That number doesn't change a lot year to year. Business checks are how we keep track of what the officers are doing. We don't keep paper logs anymore. It's all an electronic log. So we have the city split into different zones. The officers will create a business check for that zone for that day. And then as they go through their day, and they're back down there, they'll pull up that previous one and just make notes into that. It's not duplicating all night long 20 business checks at the south end. It's one business check, and then they make notes 15 or 20 times, whatever it may be. So if there's cars there, if there's something doesn't look right, they make a note on it so that the other officers are aware of it. Damaged property was down. Footbeat was down significantly. As you can imagine, we couldn't really walk into businesses and see how things are going. Not many of them were open for quite a while. DUIs were down. Again, because our beer bars were closed. Junk ordinances were down. Our medical assists were down by over 150. And the primary reason for that was at the beginning of COVID, we worked with the ambulance service and the fire department. We structured how we were going to assist them. What calls would we go on? What calls would we assist by just being in the area if they needed us? And the primary reason was to conserve PPE. Traffic stops was another one that was down. They were down by 821. So things that were up, 911 calls were up. Attempts to locate were up. Burglaries were up by 9. That number doubled for 2020. Alarms were up. Curfew violations were up. Driving complaints were up. As you probably saw on the news, with fewer people on the roads, some people were going a lot faster. And so we were getting more complaints about driving. Drugs were up, as was fraud. Fraud, a lot of it we saw was connected to stimulus checks. People trying to scam other people out of that money. Mental health was up. Neglect was up. Permits to purchase were up by 31. And suicide attempts were up. Just some more of the calls for service. So we ended the year with 7,439. Citations. So our traffic stops were down by 821. Citations changed by only 21. They were down 21 tickets. Which means that the officers, when they were making traffic stops, were making them for ones that they would have been writing tickets for in any other year. They just weren't doing as many warnings this year. NIBRs, that's the crimes that we have to report to the FBI. So our Part A offenses were up 23 from the previous year, and our Part B offenses were down 1. So Part A and Part B are what the FBI considers to be more serious crimes. And so while everybody was on hiatus from normal activities because of COVID, some of the crimes didn't take a break. And then we had some significant cases in 2020. It just happened to be June was a very busy month. We had a sexual assault where a 28-year-old ended up being arrested after being found naked in the bedroom of a juvenile. Fled out the window, was located a little while later. Subsequent search led to discovery of firearms, and he was an ineligible person because of a prior conviction. We had an assault with a firearm. We had a call on June 18th of a person being shot. And when officers got there, they discovered that somebody was in fact shot. Search warrant was executed as part of the investigation. And in addition to the second-degree assault, we ended up with controlled substance violations because of what was found during the search warrant. And then we had a stolen vehicle that fled. In this one, the officer was going to report of a man who had pushed a child. And when he got there, they said, yep, he just left. The officer went to stop him, takes off. Officer tries to stop him, loses sight of him, goes past County Road 86, and can't see anything. Just taillights all the way up, so he calls off the pursuit, turns around, comes back, sees a vehicle along the side of the road, goes to check on and make sure that they hadn't gotten struck by the suspect vehicle, and discovered that the suspect vehicle had lost control, crashed into the interchange at 86. Turns out it was a stolen vehicle from an armed carjacking in Minneapolis. So Minneapolis came down and took the vehicle, and that suspect ended up going up to, I think, to Regions, into the secure ward up there. So 2020 saw the loss of 2 of our longtime staff members. I alluded to that when I was on the screen page, or staff page. In May, Officer Ekstrom announced her retirement. She started in December of 2020. So just shy of 20 years. She was the second officer to ever wear badge 405 here in Canton Falls. And this evening, Mike became the third. And then at the end of December, we saw Bonnie German, our administrative assistant, leaving because of the elimination of her position during the budget planning process for 2021. Bonnie started her career in February of 1982 as a part-time dispatcher, and then moved into police records in 2003, and then into the administrative assistant position in 2007, I believe, until the end of 2020. And that's all I have. Any questions the council may have for me? All right.
Any questions? I guess not. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay. In the presentations, we'll get right into the consent agenda. Consent agenda items may be adopted under one motion as presented, or may be removed for discussion and resolution as council business. For you at home and in the audience, I'll go through the consent agenda. Item A, just and correct claims for the accounting period ending March 11th, 2021. Item B, minute meetings for the March 2, 2021 City Council meeting. Item C, approve a special assessment termination agreement for Olmsted Medical Center. Item D, Resolution 2541, to allow Olmsted Medical Center easement access. Item E, approve the city administrator's annual review and step increase. Item F, approve a change order number 1 on the 3rd Street Bridge, 025-597-006. Item G, approve adding part-time paramedic positions. Item H, the second reading and adoption of Ordinance 374 and the summary of publication annexing land located in Cannon Falls Township, Goodhue County, Minnesota, pursuant to Minnesota statutes 414.033 subdivision 2, permitting annexation by ordinance. Item I, Resolution 2543, approving a variance for Carson and Son Trucking at 700 Cannon Industrial Boulevard. And item J, election of the 2021 Fire Department officers. Is there anything the council would like to pull down? Nothing? I take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Bringle, second by Montgomery, to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Oh, council business, a 2021 mill and overlay project. Dan, you want to take that?
So as it shows in your packet, So as it shows in your packet, the following streets were selected for the mill and overlay for 2021. Mill Street, west of 4th Street, Evergreen Drive East, Parkway Lane, and Woodridge Drive. WHKS Engineering estimates this project will cost $170,000 plus $10,000 in engineering fees for a total of $180,000. Our budget is $150,000. The Public Works Commission recommended that we instruct WHKS to seek quotes for this project. The reason it was brought down to council business is because the estimate is over the budgeted amount for discussion, so.
Any questions?
Yeah, is this one of those situations where, obviously it's a little bit over budget, but if we were to adjust the work, it probably wouldn't be worth it to say, take
this street off there to try to get it back to 150, as long as they're here and they've got all the equipment and the job. Is that correct?
Really depends on the quotes that we receive. If it's a good year and we get good quotes, it might not be $30,000 over budget. It might be $5,000. That's more of a palatable overrun. But if it comes in at 190, we've got to chop off a block or two to get within budget.
Yeah, because this is like a filler project for someone, right? It's not a.
Pretty small.
It's pretty small, yeah.
You can always take some blocks off. So, sorry. We can always take some blocks off if it does overrun by a lot. I would recommend, along with Dan, the Public Works Director, that we proceed, simply because we may get good quotes. Like, remember last year, it was, I believe, we were 30,000 under our estimate, and we got more done. So
Nice surprise.
let's hope for good quotes and see what we come up with.
Any other questions?
How far are we going on Mill Street?
To the bridge. West to the bridge.
Anything else? Okay, then I entertain a motion to instruct WHKS Engineering to seek quotes for the mill and overlay project as was recommended by Public Works.
So moved.
How about a motion by Bringold and a second by Duncan
There we go.
There we go. I'm second.
for a motion to approval for engineering WHKS for quotes on the mill and overlay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
See where it says to the bridge now.
Okay, let's go reports here. Kyle, Chamber?
Good evening, council and community. Our first announcement is that our 2021 Discover Guides will be at the Chamber office this week. And so we will get those sent out. They do go out to all of the tourist information centers throughout the state, as well as other chambers in the state that request them. We share back and forth. And as well as we have businesses that are chamber members who have them for their customers or their clients right at their locations. And so be watching for them. It is a bright red cover this year, and it'll be hard to miss, very hard. The Easter cruise the planning is going along very well. We will be doing the candy bagging on April 2nd. We have candy for 400. Interestingly enough, I put a post on Facebook and Instagram yesterday. We've now hit over 1,300 likes, which is awfully scary. Very scary. And so if anybody has any ideas on how to make 400 bags worth of candy go for that long, let me know. But the cruise will be on April 3rd out at the fairgrounds from 10 to noon. The bagging, we are going to be doing it at True North Church in their lower level, just to be able to space it out and have plenty of room to get them all done. That will be at 9 o'clock on April 2nd. We do have great news. The Chamber's golf tournament has been set. We will be holding it on June 24th at the Summit Golf Club. And so in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting those team registration forms out. You'll be getting contacted as far as donations for gifts for all of the participants. And we're excited. It's been 2 years since we've had the golf tournament, and so it'll be fun, a lot of fun. There have been a lot of calls in regards to Fun Fest, or as most people call it, that first Thursday thing. Well, the Chamber is not going to be holding Fun Fests this year. What we are changing to is, it's called Open Air Fair. We did it last August, where we actually had the vendor booths on the sidewalks in front of the storefronts and offices. That way we did not have to block any traffic off. The vendors were spread apart enough for the community to be able to come in and see them and see what their products were. And it was very well received. And so we have an open air fair scheduled for Thursday, June 10th and Thursday, August 12th. They will run from 2:30 to 6:30. A couple other small announcements. The Cannon Valley Trail passes will be required after April 1st. That's coming in just a couple weeks. The Cannon Falls Spring Community-Wide Garage Sale is May 7th and 8th. May 7th and 8th. The deadline is going to be April 21st, so be sure to contact the Beacon to get your garage sales on that list. Any other questions? Lots of activities going on. We do have some regional advertising planned. We will be in the Minnesota Explorer, not the tourism one, but there's another one. Southeast Minnesota. Thank you very much. The Southeast Minnesota magazine, as well as USA Today has a regional magazine, and they are featuring Cannon Falls in the months of June, July, and August. And so we have placed an ad for our community in the USA Today. And so that'll be fun to see how much promotion we get out of that. Please watch the Cannon Falls Chamber's webpage. It is cannonfalls.org. We have our calendar of events. We list our sponsors, and all of our businesses are listed as well. Okay? That's all I have.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Let's go through some of these committees that met. EDA met on March 4th. Laura?
Yeah, we've had a lot of activity in the last couple weeks, reviewing some we're working on the developer agreement for volumetrics right now, trying to come to agreement in terms on that. Also, we're kind of killing a couple birds with one stone with trying to fill the Cannonball property and satisfy some workforce housing in Cannon Falls too, so we're working on that purchase agreement as we speak. And also we entered into an option agreement with a gentleman that has interest in the acreage, 4 acres in between Sweet Harvest and Lawrence Meats, and he wants to construct a large warehouse type facility that he could rent out to multiple tenants, because we seem to have a lot of people asking for, anywhere from 10 to 15,000 square feet to lease, and we don't have that. So we've got someone interested in constructing it and hoping that he can fill it with a few different tenants. So we've got some good activity happening.
Mm-hmm. So. Thank you. Public Works, Mary Jill?
Yeah, mostly what we talked about. We got an update on the mill and overlay project from Dan. and from Neil. And then we talked about the water issues we're having on the south side of town and how we're moving forward with that. I don't think I can relay the details. So, Neil, would you like to relay some details, or do you not care to? Turn on your mic.
So what's going on with
Yeah.
that is, the Public Works Commission wants to move forward with Koval. There's a 2-block plus stretch of old cast iron pipe that's in the ground. It's 4-inch. One of the things that we've got to look at, we've got to look at if there's any other reason why there's rust developing in a certain household. Before we move forward and replace 2 blocks of water main, we got to make sure that we take care of all the other issues, that if there are any, and make sure that it's the pipe and it's not something else. So we've been diligently, we sat down with the city engineer and Wes Anway, the public utilities, and Dan and myself, and wrote out a list of ideas and things that we're going to tackle in the next month or so, just to see that the real problem is that pipe. Maybe we'll find something that, one of the suggestions was, is there a valve that got buried in an overlay project that didn't get turned back on? So we researched that and we looked it over and found that to not be true. So that's one check off of the list. So we have a lot of things to pursue in the next month or so. If we can't find anything, we'll be back to visit with the city council and move forward with a project. So.
That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Park Board, Matt.
One big thing, one small thing. The small thing is we approved the purchase of a new diving board to go along with the refurbishing of the pool. But the big thing is John Birch Park, and we've been working together with the Cannon Falls Bears. They've been doing a great job of bringing some designs to us, and we've talked about what projects that includes. The biggest priority right now is that limestone wall at John Birch Park and how that's kind of starting to spill even closer to the playing field into the back of the dugout. And originally our discussion was we approved that our engineers could take some soil samples and see what exactly they'll be dealing with and look at some options for how to repair the wall. But then as the discussion got bigger, we looked at, are we going to do this in phases, or are we going to put together an entire project of what John Birch Park improvements could be, so that we as the city, or not the city, but the Bears and different organizations are able to present that to the public and try to do some fundraising, and then we can actually have a final, the numbers to see what it's actually going to cost and what's really going to get done, instead of doing it piece by piece by piece. So I have a feeling that will be a long-term project, but just so that everybody is aware, this is not just the wall, and that this is bigger things too when you compare it to other ballparks, of if they want to host state tournaments, how many different teams call John Birch Park home, and all the things that could happen. So that is a process that is now started, and I think it'll be interesting to see what some small town ballparks have done and what could happen to John Birch Park. So very interesting.
Yep.
That's it.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Bill.
Yeah, two of the items, Neil's review and the ambulance request for 2 more part-time individuals were the 2 main subjects. We did touch upon capital equipment planning, so we're looking at that, and we'll be bringing that forward at some point down the road. So that was that.
Planning Commission.
Yeah, just the main item, again, was on the agenda tonight, approving the sign variance for the trucking company. And we also touched on defining impervious surface, which according to our zoning stuff is a little, there's 2 different ways of looking at it. We got to clean that up. And then we also discussed perhaps changing in our zoning the sign heights to try and be a little more uniform, because some are 10, some are 25. and those two items will be coming forward at a later time. So that's that.
Okay. Library Board.
I don't see Nicole on, so is she there?
Yeah, she's there.
Oh, hi, Nicole.
Nicole?
What happened to the island thing going on behind your face?
I decided to let you see my living room this time.
Okay.
So I have big news that starting this week, the library, the doors are unlocked. So people can come in for express services the time limit is 30 minutes. We do require that people be masked, and we have hand sanitizer at both entrances. You can come in, use a computer for up to 30 minutes, browse the library for up to 30 minutes, check things off, check things out, pick things up from the hold shelf. We are discouraging hanging around and doing work on computers and studying and gathering in groups until everything is all cleared for us to be able to put chairs back out. So at least we're mostly back to where we can be. And then as far as programming is concerned, we have some fun ones coming up. We have a Zoom story time next Saturday, or this Saturday and next Saturday, the 20th and 27th. So if anybody is interested, you can email Alexa at aochaki@selco.info. And we have book club, a Zoom book club that is going to be the 22nd, next Monday. And Cindy Molinar is the one who runs that program, and you can email her for the link for that one. And then we have a couple of other story times coming up, one on the 23rd that's going to be on Facebook, one on the 29th, which is a sing-along story time, which will also be on Facebook. And tomorrow we have Crafternoon for Kids, so if anyone wants to pick up some crafts, we'll have the kits available at the library all day. And next Thursday, the 25th, will be kids' science kits that will be available. And we'll be doing another Crafternoon for Kids on March 31st. And then I think people will be pretty excited that we are going to start some in-person programming again outside because the weather is going to be getting warmer. I'm going to figure out when and at which park I'll be teaching fitness classes again because my shoulder kind of works now. So everything's going to be good. We're also going to be doing some Earth Day activities. We haven't quite decided what they will be, but there will be some crafting. There will be some things in the parking lot, possibly at parks. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's just a heads up about what's coming. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Nicole. Laura, you got anything else? Jeff? Neil?
Couple items. I did a webinar today with League of Minnesota Cities. We talked a little bit about the stimulus bill that was just approved by Congress. One of the things that piqued my attention is it's a lot more easy to spend the money than the last CARES package. You remember the CARES package had to be all COVID related, and this one's a little more open. One of the things that caught my attention is it can be spent on water, sewer, or broadband projects. When looking up the number that Cannon Falls is going to receive, and this is a planning number only because it's not solidified, but it was around $460,000. That will be brought to us. The first half of it will be May of this year, and then 1 year later, May of 22, we'll receive the second half. So there will be some planning done with that money, and it will be a lot easier to figure out how to spend that, simply because they didn't put all the restrictions on it. We've also been, Laura talked about some fun stuff going on. We did receive an application or will be receiving an application for a 24-lot subdivision. We're working on it. Planning and zoning will be seeing it at the next meeting, so hopefully we can get some more, the way it looks, some more affordable lots brought into town, as we've been working hard to get that done. So that's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go around. Eric, you got anything tonight? Steve?
Yeah, I just got one thing. There's been some rumors going around, and I have received phone calls about Waste Management maybe picking up the recycling. And it seems to be more a problem on the north side. So what I'm really hoping people will do is, if they get missed, please document the date and get a hold of one of us, either by email or phone call. We're all listed on the city's website, and so we can nail it down. So if we do have an issue, we can go ahead and provide Waste Management with some details in the areas that they're missing, so this doesn't continue to be a problem. That's all I have.
I've only had one call about that, and I think it was the two people that over here by the police parking lot. But I said, maybe they just missed it or something, and give it a day or so. And so they didn't call me back, so I must have picked it up.
The one guy that called me said that he had been missed so much that he's had to dump his recycling into his garbage because they haven't been picking up. And if it's an isolated incident, that's something else. But if they're missing whole blocks or something, then we gotta deal with it.
Yep.
Bill?
I have nothing.
Matt? Mary Jill?
Nothing.
Laura?
I'm good.
Okay, I'm just a couple of meetings that I got coming up before our next council meeting. We got the EDA. This is all on April 1st. April Fool's Day. We got an EDA meeting at 3:30. On that same day, Public Works at 5. And Park Board at 6. That's all on April 1st. And then yet this month, Joint Powers Board on March 23rd. That's all. You do all that remote, though, don't you?
Yeah, that's all remote.
Those are the only before we have our next council meeting, so. Okay, I don't have anything else. Public input, let's open. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the record. Kindly limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comments must be respectful, pertinent to city business, and adhere to the applicable data privacy rules. The City Council will not take action on any issue raised by the public, but may choose to schedule consideration of the item on a future agenda. Anybody here for public input? I'll open it up. I really don't see anybody out there. So second and third call for public input. And I hear nothing, so I'm going to close the public input. And with that, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Lundell and a second by Duncan to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.